Hello, and welcome back to Speak English Daily.
Hi, everyone. We are very happy to see you here today.
Hello, everyone. I'm really happy you're here today. Mike and I are talking about something that almost every English learner feels, but cannot always explain. It's that strange feeling when you understand English, but when you want to speak, your mind feels slow.
Yeah, and if you're listening right now and thinking, that's me, I get it. I've heard this from so many learners. They say, I know the words, I know the grammar, but when it's time to speak, my mouth just stops.
And here's the thing. Many people think the problem is pronunciation or confidence or even courage. But very often, the real problem is not your mouth. It's your brain.
That sounds a little scary when you say it like that.
I know, but I don't mean it in a bad way. I actually mean it in a hopeful way. Because if the problem is your brain, that means you can train it.
Right, and this is important for English learners to hear. Fluency does not start when you open your mouth. It starts before that. It starts inside your head.
Yes. Think about this. You can read English articles, you can watch English videos, you can understand podcasts like this one. But then someone asks you a simple question in English, like, how was your day? And suddenly your mind goes blank.
Or your heart starts beating faster, you feel pressure, you start translating in your head, and by the time you find the sentence, the moment is gone.
Exactly. And if that happens to you, please know this. It does not mean you are bad at English. It does not mean you are not smart. And it definitely does not mean you cannot become fluent.
I really want people to hear that because many learners blame themselves. They think, maybe my memory is bad. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe English is not for me.
But that's not the truth. The truth is simpler. Your brain has not learned how to use English automatically yet. And automatic use is the key word here.
Automatic means you don't stop to think about every word.
Yes, it means you don't build every sentence piece by piece. It means English comes out more naturally, like your first language does.
And this is where a lot of learners get confused. They think fluency comes from more vocabulary lists or more grammar rules.
Those things help, but they are not enough. Because speaking is not only knowledge. Speaking is a skill, and skills are trained through use, not just study.
Let me say this in a simple way. You don't learn to swim by reading about swimming. You learn by getting into the water.
Exactly. And with English, the water is your mind. The place where fluency begins is your thinking process.
This is why today's topic is so important. We're not just talking about English words, we're talking about how your brain works with English.
Yes, and throughout this episode, we're going to focus on training your brain step by step, not in a stressful way, not in a complicated way, but in a very human, daily life way.
And the good news is, you don't need special tools.
You don't need expensive courses, you don't need to speak perfectly. You only need awareness and practice.
And patience.
Definitely patience, because your brain needs time to change habits, but it can change, and it will change if you train it the right way.
If you're listening right now and you feel frustrated with your speaking, I want you to stay with us, because what we're talking about today can change how you experience English.
By the end of this episode, you'll understand why speaking feels hard, and more importantly, what you can start doing today to make it easier.
And we'll walk through it slowly, so your brain can follow and relax at the same time.
Before we go any further, I want to slow things down a little and talk about something very specific that happens in the brain of almost every English learner. It's something so common that people don't even notice it anymore. It's translation.
Ah, yes, the invisible habit.
Exactly. Most learners think translation is normal, and in the beginning, it is. When you first learn English, you hear a word, you connect it to your first language, and that helps you understand.
Right, that's how learning starts. You hear table, you think of the word in your language. You hear happy, you connect it to a feeling you already know.
And that's fine at the beginning. The problem is when translation becomes your permanent way of using English.
This is where things start to slow down.
Yes, because here's what really happens when you try to speak. First, you think in your own language, then your brain searches for English words, then it checks grammar, then it checks if the sentence sounds correct, and only after all that you try to speak.
That's a long journey for one sentence.
It is. And that journey creates stress. It creates hesitation. And sometimes it creates silence.
I've seen learners freeze because their brain is working too hard.
Exactly. And the important thing for ESL learners to understand is this. Your brain is not slow. It is overloaded.
That's a big difference.
A very big difference. Translation adds extra steps, and extra steps break fluency.
Let me say this in a simple way. You don't learn to swim by reading about swimming. You learn by getting into the water.
Exactly. And with English, the water is your mind. The place where fluency begins is your thinking process.
This is why today's topic is so important. We're not just talking about English words. We're talking about how your brain works with English.
Yes, and throughout this episode, we're going to focus on training your brain step by step. Not in a stressful way, not in a complicated way, but in a very human, daily life way.
And the good news is, you don't need special tools for this.
You don't need expensive courses, you don't need to speak perfectly, you only need awareness and practice.
And patience.
Definitely patience, because your brain needs time to change habits, but it can change, and it will change if you train it the right way.
If you're listening right now and you feel frustrated with your speaking, I want you to stay with us, because what we're talking about today can change how you experience English.
By the end of this episode, you'll understand why speaking feels hard, and more importantly, what you can start doing today to make it easier.
And we'll walk through it slowly so your brain can follow and relax at the same time.
Before we go any further, I want to slow things down a little and talk about something very specific that happens in the brain of almost every English learner. It's something so common that people don't even notice it anymore. It's translation.
Ah, yes, the invisible habit.
Exactly. Most learners think translation is normal, and in the beginning, it is. When you first learn English, you hear a word, you connect it to your first language, and that helps you understand.
Right, that's how learning starts. You hear table, you think of the word in your language. You hear happy, you connect it to a feeling you already know.
And that's fine at the beginning. The problem is when translation becomes your permanent way of using English.
This is where things start to slow down.
Yes, because here's what really happens when you try to speak. First, you think in your own language, then your brain searches for English words, then it checks grammar, then it checks if the sentence sounds correct, and only after all that you try to speak.
That's a long journey for one sentence.
It is, and that journey creates stress. It creates hesitation, and sometimes it creates silence.
I've seen learners freeze because their brain is working too hard.
Exactly. And the important thing for ESL learners to understand is this. Your brain is not slow, it is overloaded.
That's a big difference.
A very big difference. Translation adds extra steps, and extra steps break fluency.
Let me give a simple example. Imagine someone asks you a question in English, something easy, like, "What are you doing tonight?"
If you think in English, you might answer quickly, but if you think in your first language, your brain has to move back and forth.
And while you're doing that, the conversation keeps moving.
Yes, and then you feel pressure. You feel like you're late, and pressure makes everything worse.
This is why many learners say, "I can speak English in my head, but not out loud."
That sentence is very interesting because it shows the problem clearly. You're speaking in your head, but not in English. You're speaking in translation.
So the sentence should really be, I can speak my language in my head and then translate to English.
Exactly. And that translation wall is what we want to slowly remove.
Slowly is important here.
Very important, because we're not trying to erase your first language. We're just teaching your brain a new habit.
A new default.
Yes, a new default way of thinking. When English becomes part of your thinking, speaking feels lighter.
I like that word, lighter.
Because right now, speaking English may feel heavy, like lifting something every time you open your mouth.
And learners often think the solution is to push harder.
But pushing harder usually makes the brain tense, and a tense brain does not speak well.
So what's the better approach?
Training your brain to think in English directly, without going through your first language every time.
And this is where many learners get scared.
Yes, they think, how can I think in English if my English is not good?
That fear is very common.
And the answer is simple. You don't start with complex thoughts, you start with very small, very simple ones.
Like basic sentences.
Exactly. Your brain doesn't need perfect English, it needs usable English.
That's a powerful idea.
Because fluency is not about being perfect, it's about being automatic.
Automatic means less thinking and more flow.
Yes, and when you remove translation step by step, flow becomes possible.
So if you're listening right now and thinking, I always translate, that's okay.
It's okay. Awareness is the first step. Once you notice it, you can start changing it.
And you don't change it by force.
No, you change it by practice, patience, and gentle repetition.
And this is where the next idea becomes very important.
Now, let's move into something very personal, something that happens when no one is watching you, when you're alone, when you're quiet, when you're not trying to impress anyone.
This is where real change starts.
Exactly. I want to talk about the voice inside your head, the language you use when you think.
Some people don't even realize they have that voice until someone mentions it.
Yes, but it's always there. When you wake up in the morning, when you feel tired, when you plan your day, when you say things like, I need to hurry, or I don't want to do this today.
That voice is called inner speech.
Inner speech is simply the language you think in. And for most people, that language is their first language.
Which makes sense. That's the language your brain learned first.
Right. There is nothing wrong with that. But here's the key point for English learners. If your inner speech is always in your first language, then English will always feel like a second step.
Like something extra you have to add.
Yes, and that extra step is what slows you down when you speak.
So the goal is not to stop thinking. The goal is to slowly change the language of your thinking.
Exactly. And this does not mean thinking about deep topics in English. It starts with very small moments.
Daily moments.
Let me give a simple example. Imagine you wake up and look at your phone. You see the time. In your language, you might think, I'm late.
That thought happens very fast.
Now try something different. Say the same thing in English, but only inside your head. Just think, I'm late.
No pressure, no speaking, just thinking.
That small change is powerful because you're teaching your brain that English is not only for books or classes. English is for life.
And the brain learns best through repetition.
Yes. When you brush your teeth, you can think, I'm brushing my teeth. When you drink water, you can think, I'm drinking water.
Very simple sentences.
Simple is good. Simple is safe for the brain. Complex sentences come later.
A lot of learners try to think in perfect English and then they stop.
And stopping is the enemy here. We want flow, not perfection.
So if you forget a word,
It's okay. Skip it. Use another word, or go back to your language and then gently return to English.
gently is important.
Yes, this is not a fight, it's training.
I want to ask you something, Anna. When learners start doing this, they often say it feels strange.
That's true. It feels uncomfortable at first. Your brain is building new paths. New habits always feel strange.
Like using your left hand when you're right-handed.
Exactly. But the more you do it, the more natural it feels. And one day, you'll notice something interesting.
What's that?
You'll have an English thought without planning it.
That moment feels amazing.
It really does. And that's when learners realize, oh, my brain is changing. Now, I want to ask our listeners something. When you are alone, what language do you usually think in, especially during simple daily moments? Tell us in the comments section.
That's a great question because noticing this is the first step to changing it.
Inner speech is quiet, but it's powerful. And when you start using English there, speaking becomes less scary.
Because speaking is just saying what you already thought.
Exactly. And when English already lives in your head, it doesn't feel like a stranger anymore.
It starts to feel familiar.
And familiarity builds confidence.
Which leads us naturally to the next idea.
Now that we've talked about the voice inside your head, I want to move one step forward. This next idea takes inner speech and gives it direction. It gives it movement. It's about turning your life into language.
This is one of my favorite ideas because it feels very real.
Yes, and it feels very human. I want to talk about narration. Not storytelling like a movie or a book, but narrating your own life in simple English.
Like being the narrator of your day.
Exactly. Imagine your life has a quiet voice describing what's happening. That voice can be in English.
And again, we're not talking about complicated sentences.
Not at all. We're talking about things like, I'm walking outside. The air feels cool. I'm waiting for the bus.
These are things you already understand in your own language.
Yes, so you're not learning new ideas. You're only changing the language you use to describe them.
That's an important point for ESL learners. The meaning is already there.
Exactly. And when meaning is already there, the brain feels safe. Safe brains learn better.
Let's say someone is cooking.
Perfect example. They can think, I'm cutting vegetables. The pan is hot. I need more oil.
That's narration.
Yes. And when you do this, something interesting happens. English stops feeling like an exercise.
It starts feeling useful.
Very useful, because you're not practicing English for English's sake. You're using English to understand your world.
And the brain loves that.
The brain loves meaning. It loves real use. It doesn't love empty repetition.
This explains why some learners study for years but still feel blocked.
Because their English lives in books, not in life.
Narration brings English into your daily experience.
Exactly. And here's something very important. You do not need another person for this.
That's huge.
You don't need a teacher. You don't need a class. You don't even need to speak out loud.
You just need moments.
Yes, small moments. Waiting in line, sitting on a chair, looking out of a window.
You can think, I'm waiting. I feel bored. The room is quiet.
And you don't need to narrate all day.
That would be exhausting.
Right. Even 1 or 2 minutes is enough. The key is consistency.
Little and often.
Exactly. And over time, something shifts. English stops being a school subject.
It becomes a thinking tool.
Yes, and this is when speaking becomes easier, because when you speak, you're not creating language from nothing.
You're just saying what you've already been saying in your head.
That's why narration is so powerful. It connects thinking and speaking.
I also want to say this for learners who feel emotional in English.
Go ahead.
Many people think they can only express real feelings in their first language.
That's true for many learners.
But narration helps change that. You can think, I feel tired. I feel nervous. I feel calm.
Simple, emotional sentences are very important.
Because language is not only about facts, it's about feelings.
Yes, and when you start feeling in English, English becomes part of you.
Not something outside of you.
Exactly. And this emotional connection is what keeps learners motivated.
Motivation grows when language feels alive.
Narration makes English alive. It lives in your actions, your feelings, your surroundings.
And once English lives there, speaking stops being such a big jump.
It becomes a small step.
And that prepares us for something very practical next.
Let's slow everything down again. Right now, wherever you are, this is a perfect moment to practice. Not in a big way, just in a gentle, simple way.
I like this part because it reminds people that practice doesn't need a special time.
Exactly. Practice can happen inside normal life. So I want you to notice your situation right now.
You might be sitting, you might be walking, you might be traveling, or maybe you're just relaxing.
Whatever you're doing, try to describe it in one short English sentence, only in your mind.
Something like, I'm listening to a podcast.
Yes, or I'm sitting on a chair, or I'm moving through the city.
And there's no rush.
No rush at all. Let the sentence feel calm. Let it feel clear.
Now what?
Now add one more sentence, just one. It can be about how you feel.
Like, I feel relaxed.
Or I feel tired. Or I feel curious.
Feelings are important here.
Yes, because when you connect English to feeling, your brain remembers it better.
This is something many ESL learners don't realize.
Emotions help memory. That's why stories are easier to remember than rules.
So when you think in English with emotion, you're building stronger connections.
Exactly. And I want to say something very important here. Do not judge your English while you're doing this.
No grammar checking.
No correction, no pressure. This is not a test.
This is training.
Yes, and training means allowing mistakes. Even native speakers don't speak perfectly in their heads.
That's true. Thoughts are messy.
Very messy, and that's okay. English in your mind does not need to be perfect to be useful.
I think this part helps learners relax.
Relaxation is key. A relaxed brain learns faster.
So if your English feels slow right now,
That's okay. Slow is normal at the beginning.
speed comes later.
Yes, first comes comfort, then comes speed.
And this comfort grows every time you do this small practice.
Even 30 seconds makes a difference.
30 seconds sounds very possible.
Exactly. We want English to feel possible, not overwhelming.
When English feels possible, learners continue.
And consistency changes everything.
This kind of practice also explains something interesting.
What's that?
Why some learners suddenly feel improvement without studying more.
Yes, because their brain is finally using English, not just learning about it.
That's a big shift.
And it leads us to another powerful idea that helps especially with fear.
Fear of speaking.
Yes, and that's what we're going to explore next. Now, I want to talk about something that many learners feel but don't always say out loud. Fear. That small, tight feeling before you speak English.
Yeah, that feeling where your mind starts asking too many questions.
What if I forget a word? What if I say it wrong? What if the other person doesn't understand me?
And those thoughts can stop a sentence before it even starts.
Exactly. And this is where another powerful idea comes in. It's called mental rehearsal.
This one is really interesting because it doesn't happen in the real world.
Yes, it happens in your imagination. Mental rehearsal means practicing a situation in your mind before it happens in real life.
Athletes do this all the time.
They imagine the race, the movement, the result, and their brain learns from it.
And the same thing works for language.
Very well, actually, because your brain does not clearly separate imagination from real experience.
That surprises a lot of people.
But it's true, when you imagine something clearly, your brain creates similar patterns as real action.
So, how does this help English learners?
Let's take a common situation. Imagine you need to speak English in an online meeting.
That's stressful for many people.
Yes, so before the meeting, you sit quietly and imagine it. You imagine turning on your camera. You imagine someone greeting you.
And then you imagine yourself answering.
Exactly. Maybe you imagine saying, "Hello, everyone," or "Sorry, I'm a bit late."
Simple sentences again.
Always simple. Then you imagine someone asking a question, and you imagine yourself answering in basic English.
You don't need perfect answers.
No, you just need realistic ones you might actually use.
And you repeat this in your mind.
Yes, a few times, slowly, calmly.
What does that do to the brain?
It makes the situation feel familiar, so when it really happens, your brain says, "I know this."
And familiarity reduces fear.
Exactly. Fear comes from the unknown. Mental rehearsal turns the unknown into something known.
I like that.
Another example could be traveling. Imagine asking for directions. Imagine checking into a hotel. Imagine talking to someone at the airport.
These are very real situations.
And when you rehearse them in your mind, you're building ready sentences.
So in real life, you don't start from zero.
Yes, your brain already has something to use.
That saves time and energy.
And it helps you speak faster, not because you're smarter, but because you're prepared.
Preparation changes everything.
It really does. And the best part is, you can do this anywhere.
Before sleep, on a bus, while walking.
Exactly. No one knows you're practicing.
Which is great for shy learners.
Very true. And over time, mental rehearsal builds confidence.
Because confidence comes from experience.
And imagined experience still counts.
That's a powerful idea.
It is. When you combine inner speech, narration, and mental rehearsal, something changes.
English stops feeling like danger.
It starts feeling manageable.
And that brings us to the final message we want to leave you with.
Before we finish today, I want to bring everything together in a very simple way. Not as rules, not as techniques you need to memorize, but as a way of living with English.
I like that phrase, living with English.
Because that's really the point. Fluency doesn't come from forcing yourself to speak more. It comes from making English feel normal in your mind.
When English stops feeling special or scary.
Yes, when it becomes just another way to think, another way to describe your life.
And that starts quietly.
Very quietly, with inner speech, with small thoughts, with simple sentences in your head.
Then narration adds movement.
Yes, you start describing what you do, what you see, how you feel.
And mental rehearsal prepares you for real moments.
Exactly. So when speaking happens, it doesn't feel like jumping into cold water.
It feels like stepping into something you already know.
I want to say this directly to the listener. You do not need to rush.
Fluency is not a race.
And you do not need to be perfect.
Perfect English is not the goal.
Connection is the goal. Meaning is the goal.
Being understood is the goal.
And every time you think in English, even for a few seconds, you are moving forward.
Even when it feels small.
Small changes build big results over time.
I think that's something learners forget.
Yes, they look for big progress and miss the quiet growth.
But the brain changes through repetition, not pressure.
Exactly. So be kind to yourself. Let English enter your life naturally.
Let it sit in your thoughts.
Let it describe your world.
And let it prepare you for speaking.
If you do that, fluency becomes something that grows, not something you chase.
And that's a much better feeling.
Thank you for spending this time with us on Speak English Daily.
We're really glad you're here, learning with us.
Keep thinking in English.
Keep using it in your life.
And most importantly, keep going.
See you next time.